In Sarnia, Ontario, there's this landmark that locals call the Pyramids. And yeah, at first glance, you might just think, huh, that's kind of weird. But trust me, what they represent is so much deeper. It's this tangled story of industry built right on top of a sacred history. A history that, well, hasn't really healed.
So the big question is, what are these Pyramids of Sarnia? I mean, when you hear pyramid, your mind probably jumps straight to Egypt, right? Ancient tombs, pharaohs, the whole deal. But these are in the middle of an industrial Canadian city, and they're holding a totally different kind of secret. So let's dig in and figure out what's really going on here.
Okay, and right off the bat, here's the first major twist. These aren't ancient structures, not even close. What you're looking at are massive gravel pits, basically the leftovers from big industrial projects, like the St. Clair Tunnel. But, and this is the crucial part, they were built right beside, and sometimes literally on top of, sacred indigenous burial grounds. It's just this incredible, jarring contradiction. And that brings us right to the heart of this whole thing. It's a clash, really. A core conflict between industry and heritage. And there's actually a specific concept that helps us make sense of this tension. The term for this is symbolic inversion. And it's such a powerful idea. Think about it. You have these modern, man-made industrial mounds that are a literal and a figurative inversion of the sacred burial mounds they sit on. It completely reframes how you see the landscape. Suddenly, what might look like just a park becomes a site of real historical trauma. Now, to really get the weight of this inversion, we have to go back. We need to look at the history, because the story of the Sarnia Pyramids is all tied up in the history of the land itself and, well, the dispossession of the people who are there first. And when you look at the history, you see this clear pattern. The Amjiwanang First Nation has been connected to this land for millennia. But then in 1827, Treaty 29 transfers the land to the British Crown. Get this, though. Even when a later land patent was declared void in 1853, the land just wasn't returned. This wasn't a one-off thing. The pattern kept going, right up into the 1990s, when building the Blue Water Bridge actually unearthed ancient burial grounds.
And this quote from the Amjiwanang First Nation really just cuts through all the noise. From their perspective, it's simple. These lands were never relinquished, they were stolen. So all those legal transfers, all those industrial projects, to them, those weren't legitimate deals. It was theft, plain and simple.
When they found thousands of artifacts while building that bridge, it couldn't just be ignored. It wasn't swept under the rug. It actually sparked repatriation efforts and led to the creation of the Souls Memorial right there along the St. Clair River. It's a modern monument, a way of finally acknowledging this really deep and really disturbed history. So you take this long history of dispossession and you combine it with Sarnia's identity as an industrial powerhouse, and what you get is what many people call unhealed land. And this idea, it's way bigger than just those pyramids.
So what does that actually mean, unhealed land? Well, let's break it down. It's a place that's still carrying the full weight of its past. We're talking about the trauma of stolen land, the very real physical scars of pollution, and this spiritual burden from injustices that have just never been made right.
We can really think about it in three main parts. First, you've got the history of stolen land and all that unresolved injustice. Second, there are the environmental burdens, which are impossible to ignore. And third, there's a kind of spiritual disquiet. It's a feeling, like one of our sources put it, that spirits still linger here. Let's zoom in on that second piece for a second, the environmental side. Sarnia is known as the Chemical Valley for a reason. It's packed with refineries and chemical plants, and the pollution from all that industry, it hits the nearby Amjiwanang First Nation harder than anyone else. There's a term for this, environmental racism, and it just adds another deep layer to the wounds on this land. But look, this story isn't just about history and trauma. It's also about what people are doing now to confront this past. And one of the most powerful ways they're doing that is through art. So a really important person in this is local artist Christy Anderson. Through her Pyramids of Sarnia project, she's using things like photography, video, and a whole lot of research to document all these complex, layered histories. She's basically working to make these hidden stories visible for everyone. And this whole effort to tell Sarnia's story is now heading into some really fascinating new territory. It's about combining these ancient narratives with some seriously cutting-edge technology. It's called projection mapping, and it's pretty incredible. Basically, it can turn almost any surface, a building, the landscape, even one of those pyramids, into a living dynamic canvas. And by bringing AI into the mix to help create the visuals, artists can literally make these places come alive, telling stories with nothing but light and motion. So how does this magic actually work? Well, it's pretty much a three-step dance. First, you digitally scan the surface. Second, you use AI tools to help generate these really powerful visuals that tell the story. And then, finally, you use massive projectors to beam that story right onto the landscape. The result is this totally immersive public art experience. Which brings us to a pretty big and really important question. Can tools like this blend of art and technology, actually help heal these kinds of deep, historical wounds? Is that even possible?
The whole philosophy behind these projects can really be summed up in 3 words. We witness, we remember, we restore. It's such a powerful idea, right? It frames healing not as something that just happens to you, but as an active process. You have to start by witnessing what happened, then you have to remember it, and only then can you get to the really hard work of restoration. And that really leaves us with something to think about. The story of Sarnia's pyramids, it's very specific, of course, but the theme is universal. It applies almost everywhere. So the question I want to leave you with is this. What hidden histories, what unhealed lands exist right there in your own community? And maybe, just maybe, how could they be brought into the light?